Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Tech Woke Podcast. My name is Chris, and on this podcast, we talk about cybersecurity, career, and life. And in today's podcast, we're going to be talking to Ousmane Toure. He has an accounting firm called Your Big Bank. He's also neck deep in the government contracting space. Without further ado, Ousmane, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to talk to y'all. I keep hearing about government contractors, and no matter who I talk to, it always comes back to you. So I'm here. I'm happy to get you on, tell the audience, and tell myself a little bit more about government contracting.
Yeah, I mean, now's a good time for government contracting. You know, the economy's not doing so well. It's not so hot. And 25% of the GDP of the United States is government spending. So if you need some money right now, what better way to get it than government contracting?
Hey, they got budgets for it. Yeah, they got the budget for it.
They got the budget for it. They're going to spend. And so because they're going to spend, you know, get your piece.
But we're gonna get to that a little bit later. But we're gonna start in, where are you from?
So my family's originally from Guinea.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to say where I'm from. I've lived a little bit all over. I've lived in Europe. I lived in New York. I lived in Baltimore. I lived in Miami. But I like to claim New York. That's where I spent most of my life, between Harlem and Brooklyn. So, yeah.
That's you're multicultural. All I can say is I lived in D.C., you know.
D.C.'s multicultural. Hey, that's probably one of all the embassies are here.
Yeah. So, tell me about high school. What was you doing in high school?
High school, man, I ran track. I played soccer, and those are the two things that really, that's what I really liked to do in high school. I wasn't into business in high school. I wasn't into anything but just track, soccer, go home, play video games, and that was really it. I mean, I was studying, I went to Randallstown High School, mm-hmm. So I was in a biomedical engineering magnet. Mm-hmm. So we took accelerated science courses, but I never really wanted to be a doctor. You know, I got the African parents. They want you to be a doctor, but
trust me, I know.
I didn't want to do it.
Father, doctor, lawyer. I was like, listen, I'm good, brother. You know what I'm saying?
So that's kind of what my high school was. And then I really wanted to become an Olympic athlete when I was in high school. That was like my dream.
Now, I understand. Becoming an athlete, for me, I wanted to be a pro gamer, you know, at the time. But, you know, trust me, there's things you want to do when you're a kid. For your story, I'm just surprised that you wasn't selling candy or anything, like, you know.
I actually did that in elementary school and middle school.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. In elementary school, I sold Pokemon cards. I used to buy the packs and then wait to get the rare card. And then when I got my first rare card, I sold it. I had enough money to buy more packs. And it was like, how many packs do I have to buy before I get my next rare card? And how much money do I have left over? However much money I had left over was my profit. And then I would just keep the cycle going.
You get that Charizard, let me know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man, I got Charmander.
You got Charmander. I don't know. It's easy. So you're in high school, so you're doing those things. So what did you do after high school? Did you go to college or did you start working? What happened?
Yeah, so after high school, I went to Pace University in New York City. It was an accredited school for accounting. My first semester, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I looked down the list of majors. Accounting was the first one, so I was like, you know what? Why not? I had a couple friends that were doing it. I was like, I'm going to follow the herd. And that's how I got into accounting. But the very first semester that I declared my major, I also started working in accounting at the same time because I was like, let me just get a job, figure out what it's like. So I got an internship in the buying department at a specialty food store called Agatha and Valentina. So they're like the New York bougie version of Whole Foods, basically. Yeah. So I did that. After about, I think, 6 months, I was like, I don't really like this. So I started looking for something else. I ended up getting an internship at a small accounting firm. I forgot the name now. It's been so long. So basically all they did was bookkeeping and accounting for mom and pop stores. So you could think like gyms in New York, delis. I got to see a lot of delis. It's interesting how they make their money. I did that for about a year, and then I think that was around the time where I tore my Achilles tendon. That was a crazy time in my life. I ended up having to go back home to Maryland from New York, and I had surgery. I had to learn how to walk again. Yeah, and then when I got back to New York, I took my time, and then when I got back into the game, I started working at a luxury magazine in downtown New York, Downtown Magazine. And when I started there, their CFO or whoever was in charge of their finances, they told me the guy was a CFO, but he didn't sound like it. He had left. He had stolen a lot of money. So like 2 days in, they told me that I needed to figure out how to redo their whole accounting system. Mind you, I had never done it at the time. I'm like 2.5 years into accounting school, but, I figured it out, right? And so I figured that part out, and then it sucked, though. It sucked. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was one of those things where you're doing it, but you don't know what you're doing, and then eventually you do a good job, but you didn't even know you did a good job. So after 6 months there, I ended up getting a job at Grand Central. It was an internship. They had a program for interns, and that was the first time I found out that the train system in New York is subsidized by the government. And, you hear the word subsidy, but really what that means is that they're getting government contracts and grants from the government. And so when you get grants from the government, they audit you, especially when those grants are a few $1 billion a year. So when I was there working in their subsidy accounting department, basically I was in the department that went between Grand Central, the organization, and 5 government agencies: the state of New York, the city of New York, the state of Connecticut, the state of New Jersey, and the federal government. And we were constantly getting audited all the time. And basically they were auditing how the money was being spent that was given to them from the contract.
So at that moment, you was like, man, there's money here. You looking at it, you like, man. He said, how am I going to get a piece of this pie? So that's how you was looking at it?
At first, it took me a while to get there, right? At first, I was just shocked at the numbers. Like, I was star-shocked. I'm looking at the line items. It's like 100,000, 200,000, 400,000, all being spent in one day. And I'm like, man, how is this possible? Like, what are they spending their money on? I'm just shocked. I'm like, I've never seen this kind of money before, right? And then eventually I started thinking about it. I was like, hold on. So this is a private organization that's being paid all this money by the government in order to provide some kind of public benefit. Yes, but they ran a deficit, right? So like they weren't profitable. If the government wasn't giving them money, they would never make.
So that was the only thing holding them up, like life support.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty much. So I started thinking about it. I was like, how many other businesses out there are being operated and funded by the government and wouldn't exist if the government wasn't there, right? So then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, hold on. There has to be some kind of way to make money here. But I didn't really know what I was doing at the time in terms of like acquiring government contracts. So that opportunity, it was a great year there. I learned a lot. I learned how to do government accounting at a really high level. And I learned how to do it with an $8 billion or so budget.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Can't even count the $8 billion.
Might take your whole life, right? So one of the auditors that came in to audit us was Deloitte. Mm-hmm. And I made friends with the auditor. And she ended up recommending me for an audit job at Deloitte. So next year, after I graduated, they gave me an offer before I graduated, actually. And I ended up going to work at Deloitte & Touche, this time as an investment management auditor. So the industry that they placed me in was media, tech, and entertainment. So that was my first intro to tech from an accounting perspective.
How was it different? How was it different? So how was it different than your other one?
Yeah, so previously I was working inside a business and doing their accounting, helping them, keep their books clean and dot their I's, cross their T's. This time I was on the outside looking in. And I was checking other people's work. I was making sure that the financials that they created were accurate. No one's cheating, no one's lying. We could get into the details, but that's the general sense of it. And that was the first time that I was on the outside looking in. And that's when the whole situation of like, how much money am I making? How much money are they making? Started to really hit me, because you're auditing a company. You look inside the company, you see there's like 4 or 5 owners. They're all working, earning a salary of like $200,000 a year. And then they all own a percentage of the company. And they are continuously raising money. and the quote unquote value of that business is going up. So, you see somebody one year, they're worth 100,000, and then the next year they're worth 10 million, and then the next year after that they're worth 50 million. And I'm sitting there earning, like less than 60,000 a year, and it's starting to hit me. It's like, hold on, am I on the wrong side of the equation?
So you just kept noting it. You kept noting in your mind as you went that with the money that was being made.
Well, just like everybody has a job or has had some kind of job, and you got your boss and they're putting their foot on your neck and it makes you feel bad. So after work, you go do things to make yourself feel good, right? So I was in that same position. I would go do things after work to make myself feel good, go hang out with friends, go out to eat, cook out, whatever you want to name it, right? But I didn't want to have a job where I had to go out after work to feel good. And then I was like, if I was making this kind of money, I would feel good right now.
Facts.
Right? So it just built up slowly over time, the resentment of having to work. And then when you're an auditor, you're working like 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week. It's rough. It's rough, right? So.
Yeah, because even with me, when I first got in the government contract and I looked at my contract number, and I seen how much they was charging for me, and I was like, I'm fighting for $75K? Bro, you charging $300 an hour for me. And I'm like, what's going on? So I get what you're saying, because it hits me even to this day. And I'm like, and I'm fighting just to get a good amount of money. So
Yep. I mean, they were charging like 15 times my hourly rate.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah, when I saw that, the teams were small. So sometimes, you're first year, but you're doing the fourth year person's work. When you're doing the fourth, fifth year person's work, you get to see the budget for the job. And that's when you get to see how much they're paying you versus how much your rate is.
this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Protect your online browsing with NordVPN. Please click the link down below. You get 75% off NordVPN when you click the link down below. Every portion goes back to the channel. Check it out. Back to the video.
So the year prior, I had a friend that I used to run track with in high school. I was excited. He wanted to move to New York. I kept telling all my friends, move to New York, move to New York. I'll help you however I can. So he wanted to move to New York, and he was looking for an apartment. So he couldn't come to New York that day. So he asked me to go view a few apartments for him. So I went to Harlem to view a few apartments for him. And I go see an apartment. I'm walking in, and the landlord's like, not the landlord, the guy the manager, he's going around the apartment, looking at the apartment. There's scuff marks on the walls. And he's like, damn. He's like, talking to himself. And he keeps telling me he's the manager. And so I asked him, I was like, are you really the manager here? Because you look like you're the owner. You know what I mean? Like in accounting, they teach you to be observant, right? So I asked him that, and he started laughing. And I was like, come on, why are you laughing? Tell me the truth. Are you the owner? He's like, yeah, I am. Right? I'm not the manager, but I tell people that so that they don't try to negotiate too hard with me when I tell them the price. I was like, okay. So then we had a chat. I ended up telling him that I was in school for accounting and what I did what I was doing at the time, and he was pretty impressed. That was the year before I started at Deloitte. So I ended up going to his apartment, and he basically, without giving up his game too much, he would get apartments in New York at a reduced price, and then he would rent them by the room. This was, I think, before Airbnb even started. Yeah, or around the time Airbnb had just started. So he needed an accountant. And I had just finished that project with the luxury magazine where I redid all their accounting. So I was like, I did it before. Let me do it again. And so I did it again for him, and it ended up working out. And he said he was starting a business in the credit space. So, we had kind of started talking about it at the time. We had kind of started doing a few things together. And then fast forward back to when I'm at Deloitte and I'm thinking about quitting. And, I'm in a small box. At Deloitte, we're in a room with no lights, probably, no bigger than the space you see here. And there's like 5 people working in there every day for 80 hours a week. And it's like, shit. Like
this ain't life, bro.
There's no life. I didn't see the sun. I literally would not see the sun. I would get up in the morning before the sun was up to get there in time. You go on the subway in New York. You're not seeing the sun. The subway lets out right into the building. You go upstairs. You don't see the sun. You're there all day. By the time the sun comes down is when you go home, and then you go back home. And when you're walking outside to go home, There's no sun. So like that already, you know, we're black people, right? We're melanated. We need
Yeah, I'm deficient. I'll tell you straight up, I'm deficient, man.
Exactly. Imagine how deficient I was. No sun for like 3 months. Anyways, there was a guy in the office who was there on an H-1B visa, and he was very depressed, right? He kept saying he's going to off himself, and I'm like, man, like, this is not the environment I need to be in anymore. So one day I just got up and while I was at the office, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I gave him my 2 weeks notice. They sent the partners over to talk to me. They sent HR to talk to me. They said they could transfer me to a different location. I was like, no, I'm done. That's it. I'm just going to figure it out on my own. That was the end of
You
that.
said no mas. Yeah, man.
I said I'd take my chance in the streets.
That's how I was at Walmart one time. I was like, man, I'm gone. I just, you just got to walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, the God took you another direction, and your spirit moved you.
Yeah. I was convicted.
Yeah, he was convicted.
But guess what? A few months later, I was conflicted because I couldn't pay that rent.
He's like, hey, you get that red notice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it's like, you got to pay rent. What are you doing? You're in New York. You're living with New York prices, and you got to pay the rent. And you just been working for about 6-7 months, right? You don't have that high of savings. You got to figure it out. So that's when I called my old partner back. And I was like, listen, I need to figure something out. So, like, what are we doing here? Are we actually going to do this thing or not? And that's when I got into my first business.
Oh, so this is when you started Your Big Bank?
No, this was before Your Big Bank. There was another business that I was a part of. It was called Real Management Services.
Okay, you started with that. And then when did you start switching over to the accounting?
To the accounting? Do you want me to tell the story of how I got from there to the...
No, actually, yeah, go back to that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So the guy I started working with, he was a quality assurance manager in the banking sector. So he was heavy in the tech field. And so what we were doing at the time, we were doing credit repair and then helping real estate professionals get loans for property.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was a great business. Actually, it was a great business. And so with the credit repair component of what we were doing, we decided we wanted to build an app.
Oh, you built an app?
Well, hold on. The app never got built, right? Like, he was a quality assurance specialist, so he had more experience than me, but neither of us knew how web development worked at the time. And so we were both new, but we jumped head first, right? So we were, during the daytime, just selling to the real estate investors, and in the evenings and at night, we were working with developers. We did that for 2 years. We ended up blowing a lot of money on development.
Trust me, I know.
And had no product to show for it. And at the time, I didn't know marketing. I didn't know sales. I was really dependent on my partner's relationships to pull in sales, to close deals. Sometimes I would get on the phone with people and close them, but I was still kind of new, right? I was an accountant. I came from the back office. I didn't know any of that. So I did that for about 2 years, and then I started looking at a few different opportunities. I had a friend here in D.C., actually. He was renting cars to Uber drivers. I wanted to do that with him. But then that didn't end up working out. Nothing bad. It just wasn't making enough money to pay the bills. Even though I had the other business that I had been working in, and that was paying me a steady check. But we were spending so much money on development, most of our profit was getting eaten up. I started a photo studio at one point. And then one of my college track teammates actually hit me up. He was like, yo, I got this opportunity for you. There's this guy, he's looking to get a loan to start a Bitcoin mine. And so the guy came to my house. We sat down, we chatted for a little bit, and then it turned out that he needed help. And I was like, look, you need help. If this opportunity is as good as you say it is, I want a piece of the business. I don't just want to do a loan and then you're going to maybe afford my services, but really you're telling me you want to dump all the money back into the machines. So let me get a piece of that cash flow. And so at the time, I sat down and I thought to myself, I was like, hey, there's been a pattern in all the businesses I've been in. With the car rentals, we were buying an asset and we were renting it out. With the credit repair, the real estate investors are buying an asset and renting it out, right? And so with the Bitcoin miners, I was like, why don't we get other people to buy these Bitcoin miners, and then we're basically going to rent them from the people that own them.
That's smart. So, Oh, sorry to go back. So to go back, you bought the actual mine and you just paid them to.
So when you're mining Bitcoin, you're basically building a server room.
Okay.
So you have a server room full of computers. So instead of us raising money, because at first we thought, hey, maybe we should just, like, we needed a lot of money, right? We needed a few $100,000, and we weren't going to get that through a loan at that time. So instead of raising money, going to the lawyer and, getting all those documents lined up, I thought to myself, you have friends, I have friends, we all have friends. Let's tell each one of our friends to buy a $2,000 computer, and we'll pay them a percentage of the profits, and we'll all keep the rest. Right? So back then, a Bitcoin miner, you buy it for $2K, you're making about $2K a month. So we can pay them back the cost of the computer the first month, and then we could do a profit share. So we were doing like 80-20. So we were able to get 60 Bitcoin miners.
Oh, that's good. So you just kept putting it back into the business.
We kept putting it. Well, we were getting other people to, and then we putting. But other people were buying the initial computer, and then we were putting it back into the business. There was a limit to how fast we could scale because you could only buy so many Bitcoin miners on the market at the time. But that scaled pretty hard and pretty fast. So we got to the point where we had to replace one of the initial investors, and we replaced them with a warehouse owner. Unfortunately, that warehouse owner ended up just turning on us, and all sorts of things happened. But at the end of that, the way that ended is Bitcoin crashed in 2018 from like 20K to 3K, and then the owner of the warehouse took all the machines and boarded up his warehouse and disappeared.
Oh, he was like, I got to collect on this. He said, he's like, let me cash in.
Yeah, so if you're following along and you do the math, you could imagine we were pulling in quite a bit of cash, right?
Close to it, probably
in Bitcoin, untraceable. But we ended up losing all of that when the warehouse incident happened. So after that, I had nothing.
That's a hard story. From hearing your stories, you was doing all these entrepreneurship things, wasn't working out. You was just taking out on your own whim, and then once you have something that's working, it just failed in your face. How did you feel about that? Like,
got snatched from you.
It's snatched, like literally snatched from you. Like, how did you keep going?
I mean, that literally feels like what you guys might imagine heartbreak feels like. Like your chest, you got this feeling in your chest, like you got stabbed in your chest. And you're just sitting there, you want to cry, but you can't because you feel so dry on the inside.
That's how I feel sometimes. Sometimes I just want to cry, but I just stare into space. I'm like, you gotta hold it like,
There's no tears. I was like, listen, I could cry and sulk, or I could go do something about it.
Or get that big tear. Get that big tear that comes down,
So that's the beginning of the transition period from working with everybody else to working by myself.
So you said, I'm just gonna do it. I'm saying nobody else. I trust myself. I'm gonna keep it going myself.
If I'm gonna keep failing, I might as well just bet on myself.
'Cause you can't blame nobody.
Yeah, can't blame nobody but myself. And so, I'll get into that story in a minute.
So, how did you transition from Bitcoin mining to government contracting?
Yeah, so, man, it always takes me back a little bit. After the whole loss from the Bitcoin mine, I was devastated. Just sitting in my apartment for a whole week, I didn't do anything. I didn't go outside. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I took like 2 showers that week. I know that sounds bad, right?
You being real, man.
And then I went in the mirror the final day, and I was looking like a little wolf. And I was like, 'cause I got a beard. The beard's just growing crazy. I was like, man, I gotta figure something out. So I was like, if you're gonna feel bad, you might as well do something while you feel bad, right? So I was living in an apartment with 2 other roommates, and they thought because I, had a Bitcoin related business, I was rich. So they decided to stop paying rent. So on top of me losing the Bitcoin mine, I had 2 roommates that weren't paying rent. So now I had to cover $3K a month in rent. So my savings were slowly getting depleted from that. And I was like, why is it that in all these other opportunities, you kind of hit some level of success and then it was taken away from you? And I looked in the mirror and I was like, I don't know how to maintain this. Like, I don't know how to maintain. And the reason why I don't know how to maintain is because I don't know what it takes to get to that level on my own. I don't know sales. I don't know marketing. And because I don't know those 2 things, I keep getting into businesses where we're buying an asset and we're renting it. I need to flip this on its head. I need to do something different. So I had a friend who was on YouTube at the time, and he used to speak about credit. And I was like, okay, let me figure out, let me hit him up and see if he can send me leads. So he was a personal credit guru. And I went to him and I was like, look, I got this business credit service that I can deliver. I want to charge $2,500. Do you think that's a fair price? He said yes. I was like, okay, what if I give you 20% of every customer I get? You start sending me leads, and then I'll let you know whoever signs up, and I'll pay you 20%.
That's smart.
So right away, he starts sending leads. He's like, listen, $500 per person, that's great. So he starts sending leads. That first month, I think I closed about 10 leads, so about $25K in sales, right? Great. But guess what? Now you got to deliver. Oh, shit, you're by yourself this time. It's all on you. So I had to tell him, I was like, look, you got to kind of slow down the number of leads that you're sending because I can't deliver to all these leads. And that was the first time I had that issue where I was like, I can't fulfill all this. And, just an aside, I've been on Twitter for a while, and they always love to call people scammers. But really, I don't think people are necessarily scammers more so than they don't stop and say no when they hit capacity. They don't try to figure out where their capacity is. So anyways, I was over capacity. So I took the clients. I started building a system in a spreadsheet to manage the clients. I, kind of dealt with the overflow, got everybody started, and then he kept sending leads. He sent me leads up until about November. Mm-hmm. I think I did about $125,000 in sales that year, and I paid him out about $25K. And right around Thanksgiving, he was like, listen, I checked my books and I noticed you sent me $25,000 this year. I was like, yeah, I sent you $25,000. He's like, well, I think I'm going to keep this business for myself.
Oh, he just took it from, it's people, man. People
Again,
tripping out here.
He took it from, it's New York, right?
Yeah.
Sharks in the water. If you can't swim with the sharks, then you're going to drown. So that happened. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm tired of New York. I'm going back to Maryland.
He said, I believe it. I can't
do this anymore.
Everybody trying to scam,
Or scam or just
get over.
It's a zero-sum game. Everybody feels like the pie is made already, and that's all that you're going to eat. So let me try to get the biggest piece of the pie, as opposed to thinking about how do we make more pies or how do we grow this pie that we have here. And because they had those mindsets, and I kept running into those mindsets, I was like, I need a refresh. So I left New York, moved back in with my parents. And I was like, I'm going to figure out this marketing deal.
How'd that
feel, though? It didn't feel too good. It really didn't feel that good. It was like, man, I was like 27 at the time. I was like, I'm a loser now. I'm moving back in with my parents. I'm not going to be able to go outside and see my friends anymore because I'm moving from New York to Maryland. I didn't have friends here, right? I'm going to be by myself. And I was like, you know what? I think I watched one of the old school movies at the time. It was like one of those BET movies. I don't remember what the name was, but one of the characters had just come out of jail, and he was buff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat this like I'm going to jail. I'm about to get to work in this room. And when I come out, I'm going to be rich, right? So I always try to find the positive in things, because if you just focus on the negatives, you're screwed.
Yeah, because in a way, God tries to humble people. Not humble. Sometimes God tears you apart for what is to come.
Yes.
So that's what I think you were going through.
I believe that 100%. If I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Because it's a government contract. It's a tough business.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And so, funny enough, at the time, one of the clients that had been sent to me to help build business credit was a government contractor. And he was in Maryland. So the reason why I chose to come to Maryland, not just because my family was here, but because this government contractor guy was like, listen, if you come back to Maryland, maybe not now, maybe not next year, but in a few years, you can hop on this government contracting train. And you see my bank statements, you see how much money I'm making. He was pulling in $1 million a year at the time. This is in 2018.
That's possible. That's possible in government contracting.
Yeah, you can do millions a year in government contracts. Okay. Yeah. The amount of money that's out there is insane. Okay, so pay attention to what I'm about to say next. I sat with him and I went through his bank statements to help him get loans, and I watched him go from $300,000 to $1 million a year to 1.2 to 1.5. And then he introduced me to other government contractors who were doing 10 million a year, 12 million a year, 15 million a year. And I was shocked. This was like that Deloitte moment where I'm looking at people's net worth just go up and up and up. But now it wasn't net worth. It was revenue in cash in the bank.
That's crazy.
Right? So I'm still going along, learning sales and marketing. This was beginning of 2019. I was still doing a business credit. I was trying to sell that on my own. I wasn't sure how I was going to get into government contracting. And then during 2019, I got really big into Twitter. I was like, if I'm going to learn sales and marketing, I might as well just go on a social media platform and try to market something. So I started talking about accounting, started talking about finance, trading, and I kind of ran into a few different communities. There was Black Twitter LLC at the time, or whatever, LLC Twitter, whatever they called it.
They just made a movie.
Right? They did?
They made it on Netflix, Black Twitter, something called Black Twitter.
Oh, Black Twitter, but not LLC Twitter, right?
Oh, okay.
They had this thing called LLC Twitter, and I was friends with some of the people in it. So I started cross-promoting. We were all tweeting, retweeting each other. Things got pretty nice, right? Like, I was getting, like, I think 1 million impressions a month just tweeting by myself.
That's good. Did
right?
you learn copywriting? Or?
I learned copywriting at the time. I learned how to write copy. I mean, I wasn't the greatest at the time. And granted, like, if you're learning from Twitter gurus, you're not getting the best education possible. But that was my entryway into that world. And so by the time October 2019 came around, people were asking me for help with their accounting. And I was selling this, like, accounting template. And I ended up selling like 40 or 50 copies, and 2 or 3 of those people decided to become my customers.
Wow.
And that's how I started the accounting business. And the 2 people that became my customers were also government contractors. So I was like, man, I did the business credit with government contractors. Now, right away, I'm doing accounting for government contractors. I'm sensing a theme here. Like, let me try to see if I can pick up more customers in this space. And I didn't really know too much about IT, but when I followed the principles of marketing, which is first you go look at an industry, you go look at the top 5 industries by growth or revenue if you want to make money. I looked and I saw that IT was one of the top growing industries by revenue, and it had one of the top already existing revenues. So I was like, I need to get into IT somehow. I need to sneak in the back door.
Oh, that's smart. So he was like, you thought ahead of time, like, hey, this is where the money at. I want to kind of park here, and like, I'm just gonna go in.
Yeah, I'm gonna park here. I'm gonna, again, I'm in the room, and I'm staying in this room until I get rich, right? So I'm gonna go into an industry where there's a lot of money, and so that's how I got started in government contracting. And then,
Was your first clients, were they in IT?
they're in IT.
Okay.
YouTube probably knows one of my first clients. I'll save it for our next interview.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. You know who it is?
I'm not sure who is it.
I'll tell you after. I'll tell you after. Okay. Yeah. YouTube knows. YouTube knows. I'll ask if it's okay to say that, right? But yeah, they were both in government contracting. One was in software development, the other one was in cybersecurity. So you specialize in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I know. This.
Yeah.
Just selling Windows software to the government, that's a $1 million business right there. Just software,
Right. So this is kind of how my connection got into government contracting. At first, I wasn't the government contractor. I didn't know how it worked. But I thought to myself, what if I structure my business so I can still get a piece of the government contracts? Well, the way my business works right now is we provide accounting services, right? So, like, I'll give you guys my pitch. Like, at your big bank, we believe that disorganized finances are the enemy of a sustainable business, right? So if you have disorganized finances, you're going to start making poor decisions. If those poor decisions compound over time, you're going to start getting frustrated. You're going to lose confidence to run your business, right? So when you're losing that confidence, you're like, shit, like, what am I going to do? So what we do is we come into your business, we clean up your finances so we can give you that confidence back so you can believe that your business is going to work. And then we show you how each dollar of revenue can fund your personal lifestyle.
Oh, that's smart. So it's like kind of like you're just showing how to make more progressive accounting. Like you're trying to grow over time.
I'm showing you how to grow over time, but I'm also showing you if you make $10,000, how much of that can you put in your pocket and walk away after taxes, after expenses, after all your bills are paid for.
Listen, you almost sold me. I'm looking at you like, listen, sign me up today,
Right.
And this is when you started Your Big Bank, right?
That was when I started Your Big Bank. So I thought to myself, what is that worth? Do I charge a monthly fee or can I take a percentage of revenue? So what I do actually is I take a percentage of revenue.
That's smart.
So I have clients that are government contractors or subcontractors, and they pay me a percentage of their revenue to set up this accounting system for their business. And so they're getting the government contract at the time, but I'm still getting paid a percentage of that government contract.
So it's kind of like out of a box system that you have, and you're getting a piece of the contract. That's a good business, man.
Yeah, but guess what? I make more money if they make more money. So I needed to learn how to make more money in that space. And that's when I started learning how to get more government contracts, how to drive more revenue.
So we're going to get into that. I just want to kind of dive in on kind of the accounting portion. I'm not going to go into any numbers. Yeah. So what are some of the indirect costs when it comes to government contracting that you can say?
I mean, indirect costs, I'll give the definition of indirect costs. So indirect cost is something that isn't directly being spent on delivering the service. So rent, any furnitures and fixtures that you buy for the office space that you get. Those are some really simple examples. Any admin costs that you pay for that aren't doing work on the government contract, they're not billing the contract directly. Those are all indirect costs. And then obviously there's direct costs, right? Which is the manpower, the money and labor that you pay, the payroll fees that you pay, the payroll costs that you pay to get people to do the actual work that they are then billing to the government contract.
Yeah, and I know those are important because if they are not handled properly, somebody can go to jail, tax fraud. So I know that's highly important. Also, too, can you get into how do you even register a business to get into government contracting?
Well, let me say this first. Okay. Whenever you get money from someone, it comes with strings attached. Okay. Right? So when he's saying about fraud and what you're supposed to do, you get money from the government for a government contract, there's strings that are attached. And those strings mean that they can come in and audit you. And so that's why you want to have good accounting. You want to have a great accounting system where everything is accounted for according to the standards that they set.
Yeah, because I even when I do payroll, they always making sure, hey, do your timesheet today, because they can get audited anytime, and they know it's...
And your time and labor is the main product that's being sold.
Can you tell me about some of the insurance that goes with government contracting?
I mean, typically you need general liability, you need commercial vehicle insurance. So general liability is just, it's kind of like a big umbrella policy. Like there's all these things that might go wrong and you get insurance for it. And then there's commercial vehicle insurance, because if you're in a car while you're doing any of the work, then, you need insurance for the time that you spend in the car. Just like, you're driving a regular car. Those are the two pretty simple kinds of insurances that you need. And then there might be contract-specific insurances if you're handling equipment, if you're buying equipment, just to make sure that when the equipment is being used or when it's going from point A to point B, it's covered.
Yeah, also, too, what type of bank accounts do you need? I know you need a savings account, a check. How do you manage the money through bank accounts? Yeah,
that gets kind of into some of the operational accounting. I always tell people, and I was going over this with my admin this morning before I came here. When you have a business, you want to figure out how you're going to manage your money, right? So, I use the profit first system. So, profit first system states, if you get $10,000 in revenue, then you have to take money out of that revenue for taxes first, right? And then you take money out of there for expenses. So you set aside your money for expenses. We're going to use some round numbers. Let's say you take out 10% for taxes and you take out 40% for expenses. Well, that 50% that you have left over, you can split that into profit and savings. The profit, you can take that out at any time, guilt-free, and go do whatever you want with it. I suggest you invest it, but, some people want to go on vacation, buy a car, buy luxury clothes. That's your money right there to do that. The savings, until you build up a pool of savings that I at least say 6 months of savings, let your savings account grow. Once the savings account grows, then you could take the full 50%, that's left over after taxes and expenses and go do whatever you want with it.
Oh, that makes sense, because even with payroll, I always think, does that go straight to pay? Like the money that's getting for the contract, it goes straight directly to payroll? Because sometimes you don't have the money on time.
Okay,
either.
That's a good question. So payroll is actually just a regular expense of the business. So depending on the type of business you have, as an owner, you might have to pay yourself or you might not. So if you're getting taxed as an S corp, then you have to pay yourself some minimum amount of payroll, provided you have a profit. And so the money that comes out for payroll is an expense. You set it aside with the expenses. Whatever's left over after the expenses is what becomes the profit that you can take, pocket, do whatever you want with it. Granted, you still have to pay taxes, but that's why that tax account is there, to make sure that as you earn more money, you're setting aside the money for taxes. Because as a business owner, if you pay yourself payroll, the government takes taxes out of that. But whatever profits you have, the government doesn't take taxes right away. It's your responsibility to give it to the government.
So what are some things that you can build for the government to get profit?
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. But,
cybersecurity.
But, like, for example, sometimes they bill for when you win a contract. I know that you can charge when you're bidding. You put in some factors, say insurance, PTO, stuff like that. So
okay, like what are some general expenses that people have? Yeah. So it's like there's payroll, and then payroll comes with maybe some type of payroll benefits, your employees' 401ks, health benefits. These are called fringe benefits if you want to look them up. And then besides that, there's rent, there's equipment, so like laptops, computers, anything else that your people might need to get the job done. A lot of times in cybersecurity, it's laptops. Computers are a huge expense, right? And then beyond that, there's subcontractors. So some of my clients are subcontractors to prime contractors. Prime contractors have the contract directly with the government, and then they have these subcontractors, which can end up becoming a large amount of their expenses. And so there's a huge opportunity for people who want to get their foot in the door. If you're not ready to go for a full-on government contract, you can become a subcontractor of someone who has a government contract, and then you can start to build your experience from there.
Is that the same thing as 1099 or?
Yeah, it is. It is. You do get paid. You get a 1099 form at the end of the year if you were paid as a subcontractor because you're not an employee. If you were an employee, then you get a W-2 at the end of the year. And if you've ever had a regular job, W-2 is what you get.
So from the contractors that you currently work for, do they have a lot of employees? Because I know once the contracts end, they cut a lot of them, and then they have to find new contracts. So how does that work? Yeah,
so it's a planning process, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a contract right now, I've had a client. He had a contract. He had 15 employees, and then the contract was coming to an end. So he knew the contract was coming to an end, and he started looking for another one in advance. And while he was looking for that new contract, he wanted to plan to keep all 15 employees. He was only able to keep 12. So he had to let go of 3 employees. But usually what happens is you give them a really good recommendation and you keep in touch with them. If you get another contract in the future, you want to pull them in, because one of the most scarce resources in the whole government contracting game is labor. There aren't enough people who are qualified who can do the work.
I agree, especially with the clearances and things like that. Yep. So how important is the referring to the FAR when budgeting for contracts?
I mean, FAR is the financial regulation, right? So like, that's where the rules are set. That's where the rules of the game. Like, you could think of this as a game, right? But the government contracting game. So you want to understand the rules, and the rules are set by that law. And FAR is the law where the rules are set. So it's pretty important if you think about it. I think a lot of people skip over it, and I think that's a mistake. Like, you definitely want to understand the rules of the game.
Yeah, because even at my current job, there's some security guards that's not getting their proper pay, you know, working overtime and things like that. And I've been telling them, you might want to go check that FAR and, report that. You might be able to get some money. Yeah,
I mean, I haven't dealt with any cases where people weren't getting paid what they're supposed to, because I'm the accountant, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm there to make sure people are getting paid what they're supposed to. But if you go look at with any case, right? Like, you go look at the laws, employment laws even, you could go straight to the Department of Labor if you're around here in D.C. and start asking questions, right? So
you just gotta band together. That's what I tell them. Just band together, go as one. But you know how some people can be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna just forget it." Hey, that's my money. I don't play about my money. That's the one thing I don't play about. You know,
it's unfortunate. You know, sometimes people are afraid too. They're like, "I'm not getting everything I'm supposed to, but at least I'm getting something. So let me shut up and just take what I can get."
Yeah. So I know cybersecurity is the most lucrative form of government contract, but anybody can get in contract. You can do media. Anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to another guy the other day. He does dumpsters. He does dumpsters as government contracts. He does dumpsters, porta potties. When I was doing business credit in the past, I had a guy that was hauling sand for the government.
Oh, sand?
Yeah, just
like
straight
sand?
up, just sand. He was hauling sand. He was doing $400K a year per truck that he had hauling sand. And you know, you can. The government buys every and anything. Anything you see inside of a government building was bought and purchased and then resold to the government.
So they budget every year for it. The government's budgeting.
It's a good point that you're getting to. So the way the government budget works is that if you have a contract, let's say for $1 million, they're gonna increase it if you use the entire budget. If you don't use the entire budget, the next year they won't increase it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's this whole game in government contracting where it's like we're tracking the budget that we were given, that we were awarded, and we're trying to spend the whole thing. So sometimes a company might be super efficient, but they're still going to find other ways to spend the budget because they were so efficient and they want to get an increase for the next year. And that kind of goes into, you know, the profit, how government contractors can profit. Well, when you're getting awarded, before you get awarded a government contract, you're negotiating. It's a negotiation between you and the contract officer, but the contract officer is being given a bunch of different options. And so you have to promote yourself as the best option. And sometimes what people do is they'll underbid. But what the contract officer is thinking, we have this budget, we need somebody that can come in and fill the whole budget. So don't underbid. You want to bid and provide value for what they're budgeting. Not just say, hey, you asked for this amount of work and we can do it for such a cheap price. It's like, no, you asked for this amount of work, we'll give you extra work at the same price.
So basically you're trying to let people know, listen, the money's out here. People, y'all need to take advantage of this resource because they're practically giving this money away.
They're giving it away. They're actively attempting to give it away. Like, the government has said that they want to give money to small businesses, right? Like, so it's no secret.
Okay, so quickly, can you explain how to get into government contracting?
Yeah, I think the best way is to ask yourself what industry you want to be in and who you want to work for. Go look for that government agency and then go look for that government agency's small business contract center and then reach out. Just pick up the phone and call them. I know a lot of times people like to text or email, but if you just pick up the phone or even if you just show up to their office, every government agency has a small business contracting center, and they'll be able to guide you on how you can best get government contracts from them. They also have industry events where you can go meet the contract officers that are actually the people who are awarding you the contracts. So don't be shy, pick up the phone, and use your resources.
And to register your business, so you got to create an LLC and then register on sam.gov also?
Yeah, you did ask me that earlier. So you definitely will want to set up an LLC or corporation, consult your attorney or your accountant, and then once you set up the LLC or the corporation, you want to set up a bank account. Once you have a bank account and a corporation, and you set up your EIN with the IRS, which is your employer identification number, it's your tax ID for your business, you can then go to sam.gov and start to get registered, and that's how you start the process.
Okay, and you can bid on sam.gov also.
Yeah, so sam.gov is the system for award management. It's the system the government uses to award people contracts. So you can find opportunities on sam.gov. It's not the only website you can use to find opportunities, but you can find opportunities for contracts you want to bid on sam.gov. And from there, you can start to get your bearings of, can I actually deliver what they're asking for? If yes, then maybe you want to bid. And if you want to bid, like I just said, find the agency's small business contract center, or small business center, go to the small business center, talk to the representatives there and ask them to introduce you to the contract officer. That way you can have a more personal conversation with the person that's going to award you the contract.
And then also for sub, you can just kind of just call that business and just see if you can get a sub with a prime.
Yeah, so for subbing, it's a bit more complex, but on sam.gov, you can see businesses that have been previously awarded contracts. So if you know who's previously been awarded a contract, that's the type of contract you might want to work for. You can also do some direct outreach to those businesses and just see if they want to hire you. You know, have your resume ready, have your past experience ready, and just be ready to negotiate.
Yeah, that's some good information. We definitely got to run this back. The next one got to be probably a couple hours, so we can literally dive into this. But it's some good entry level information on government contracting. So, Oos, what's your goals in the next 5 years?
Oh man, my goals. You know, I used to have big goals. Now I just have effort goals. I want to show up every day, show up the way I want to show up. Right, put in the work.
Give me something big. What's something that will shock you? What's something you want to do that shock you, shock the people around you?
Shock me, shock the people
because I
want to
timestamp it.
You want to timestamp it?
I want to timestamp it so the next time I talk to you, I'll see if you hit those goals.
Before the next 5 years, I definitely want to have a business that's doing $10 million in revenue.
That's good. That's a bold claim, and I think you can do it.
Yeah.
I know you can do it. I'm sorry. I know you can do it.
Definitely. I believe it. So, you know, my performance coach always asks me 2 questions. What do you want, and do you believe you can get it? And yeah, that's what I want, and I believe I can get it.
Yeah, you're making me believe too. I believe in myself. Hey, I'm $10 million a month. You can't tell me nothing. I'll be in Miami every day. You know?
Oh man, might have to go a little further than Miami after that, right?
I need to go back to my home country, Nigeria.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about that before. Yeah, I think you should. December's a good time to go there.
I got you. So, yeah, I've been hearing that. You know, I mean, it's the most expensive time actually.
It is. Just get the get your wallet ready.
Yeah, you right.
Get ready for the experience. So,
where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so I mean, if you ever want to reach out to me, I have an Instagram. It's Big Bank Ous. Ous is spelled O-U-S, so Big Bank Ous. It's the same on Twitter. I have a lot more followers on Twitter, so there's a lot more noise in my DMs. But if you catch me on Instagram and you send me a DM and you say that you found me from this podcast, you can have a chat with me. I'm also on LinkedIn. You'll find my LinkedIn. You'll find the link to my LinkedIn on my Twitter account in the bio. So you can also I'm sure Chris is going to put it in the show notes as well. But it's just my name, Ousmane Toure. So Twitter, Instagram is really the best place to reach me if you DM me. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, make sure you shout out Tech Woke when you're reaching out to him.
That's right. Shout out Tech Woke. Let me know this is where you found me.
Thank you again, Ous, for coming on the podcast. Ous of Your Big Bank accounting firm. If you need any help with government contracting, reach out to him on LinkedIn. Reach out to him on Instagram. He knows what he's doing, trust me. So reach out to him. So we got to close everything out. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Tech Woke podcast. Remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Remember, everybody, like the video, subscribe to the channel, write in the comments. Also, check out Tech Woke Consulting in the description. That's pretty much it, everybody. Peace out, everybody. I'll see you on the next one.